Welcome to Wars and Wisdom, a series designed to educate, provoke insight and inspire a deeper understanding and perspective. Now here's your host, Sam.
Welcome to Wars and Wisdom. My name's Sam, and I'm going to be the host of this series. Now, probably by first glance, you're thinking that this series is going to be me talking about stories of the war and the wisdom that I have possibly acquired. You're not wrong in that. However, when I talk about the wars, I'm talking about the wars that I have personally fought in my own mind, have fought in my own life, have fought with people against, and situations that I have gained incredible wisdom from. I realized not long ago that there are a lot of situations that I've gone through in my life that quote unquote are not normal, that a lot of people have not necessarily experienced and gone through and had to work through and heal from. And in turn, it's given me a lot of insight and a lot of perspective. Over time, a lot of people have come to me when they have had issues, when they wanted advice, when they wanted to see things from a different perspective. And I realized that because I had been through all the things that I had, I was able to give that. And we finally got to a place where we thought, oh, actually, that might actually be really helpful for people, especially at a time when healthcare costs are extremely expensive. Therapy is extremely expensive. A lot of people are turning to AI. A lot of people are turning to holistic therapies. A lot of people are turning to a lot of different modalities because they want answers and insight and they want to gain perspective and knowledge, but everything is expensive AF right now. So I totally get it. So I am here to create a series that talks about the wisdom and insight and knowledge I have acquired from walking through the fires of my own personal life and journey, and to come out on the other side to share them with you, because I truly feel like that is one of the main reasons why I went through all of the destruction that has happened in my life, so that I can give those insights and perspectives to people who either may go through it, are going through it, or who may be able to help somebody that is going through it. So a little bit about me so we can get a little bit more acquainted with one another. My name's Sam. I'm a spiritual life coach. I'm an aura reader. I have a background working in mental health and eating disorders. I used to be an esthetician working in the skincare industry. I'm a creator. I'm a writer. I'm an author. I'm an inventor. I do a lot of things. I love creative shit. I'm a lover of interior design. I love animals. Few fun facts about me when I was a little kid. I used to love Gushers. They were one of my favorite snacks. I used to love to collect Pogs, Beanie Babies, Hanson, Spice Girls, watching Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the Doodle Bear, one of my favorite toys as a kid. I also, too, loved Mary-Kate and Ashley. They were my go-to when I needed to solve crimes as a kid. I don't watch these true crime shows. When I was a kid, I was way ahead of the game. I was watching true crime with Mary-Kate and Ashley. That is the length of my true crime that it goes. So, without further ado, welcome back to Wars and Wisdom. On today's series, I wanted to speak about medical advocacy and why this is so important for your own journey when it comes to your health. There were a couple of situations that I will speak upon that I've gone through and learned why being your best advocate for yourself is so important when it comes to your health, because you may get advice from medical providers and you very well may trust it. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately what you feel and what you trust and what you feel is going to be best for you, and to be able to stick up for yourself when need be. So I want to go back to when I first started treatment for an eating disorder. I was young. I was in my early 20s. And although I was making progress in my recovery, I felt that when it came to the therapeutic side of things, I absolutely needed more work. I needed to work through certain traumas. I needed to come to terms with why I was utilizing the behaviors that I was to cope in the ways that I was. And when I got a letter from insurance that basically said, okay, we feel that you're ready, we're no longer going to cover your treatment expenses, I felt a little bit like the wind got knocked out of me. And I also felt that I wasn't ready, ultimately, that I had more work to do. But again, I was newer to treatment, so I didn't necessarily know the ins and the outs of this. And I thought that, okay, well, if insurance thinks that I'm ready, then my team must think that I'm ready. Then even though I don't feel ready, I must be ready. And I leaned into that. And even though, like I said, I felt that there was more work to be done and I really needed to go through more steps in my treatment. So it wasn't about 3 months later that I ramped up my schedule. I got really busy, and then there was also times where I was able to slip back into old behaviors and patterns and use those as a coping mechanism to cope with the stress and to cope with the changes in schedule that I was going through. And a year later, I was back in treatment. So I knew when I was being discharged from treatment that I needed more time. But again, I was young. I didn't understand the recovery process so much and what all goes into it. But had I spoken up and said, I need more time, and had I fought for more time with treatment, I wonder if I would have necessarily ended back up in treatment a year later, if the results would have been a lot different. So that's the first example that I want to use. The second example came down to one of my medical providers, actually my physician that I saw when I was just going for routine checkups. So I had moved, so I had to enlist a new medical provider. And although she was very kind and, very patient, I felt at the end of our appointments kind of like she was more or less reading from a script and not necessarily taking my medical history into account with some of the suggestions she was giving. And being that I have been in eating disorder recovery for many years now, a lot of the advice was not necessarily the best advice that you would give to somebody who has been through the eating disorder recovery process. A lot of tips that she was trying to suggest would actually be very detrimental, and it would easily put me back into a relapse if I was not careful with it and had I not known any better. And, I was far enough in my recovery to understand what she was saying and not necessarily pay it any mind. But then after the second appointment, my mindset changed a bit. I started to feel more or less that if you're not taking the time to understand my history and what I have gone through, then I don't necessarily feel that this is going to be the best fit, because I need somebody who is going to take into consideration my medical history and give me their best advice based on that, not based on a textbook and a blanket statement. Like, I need somebody who is really going to consider everything that I've been through. So unfortunately, I had to part ways with that medical provider. But again, it was something that I needed to stand up for myself in that situation. Was it awful? Yes, because then I had to get on the phone with my insurance and find a new provider and be on a wait list and, find out this person actually doesn't take my insurance. It sucked. It was hard, but I was willing to do that because I was not willing to stick with a provider that was not going to take my history into account and give recommendations based off of the textbook rather than what would actually be best for me and my needs. Now let's talk about the COVID shot. I recently just spoke upon this for the first time in a really long time with what happened with the COVID vaccine. And for those of you who are listening that have not read my articles regarding my stance on this, or listened to a couple of, snippets that I had recorded talking about this topic, basically what had happened was after I received my second COVID vaccine, I stopped having my menstrual cycle. And I knew when it happened that there was some correlation to it. I found a few months later an article that was speaking on how the COVID shot has the potential to go straight to the ovaries, and it could greatly affect fertility in women and cause significant issues. And this was something that I was mandated to get within the position that I held. So I really didn't have a choice in the matter, or else I would have lost my job in a very unsettling and unpredictable job environment. I mean, this was the time of COVID when everybody was basically losing their jobs left and right. And it was a very scary situation to be put into, to have to make that choice. So I went to 3 different OBGYNs, and each of them told me that the reason why this happened was not due to the COVID vaccine. It was for some other reason. So over the course of a few years, I took each and every one of their advices. I lowered my stress levels. I went off birth control, which that in itself is a roller coaster. I gained weight to see if that would do anything, because that was another reason why I was told that I could have lost it. And even though I knew deep down that those were not the reasons, I still took their advice and I still did everything they asked, and still nothing happened. So again, this is where I speak about being your own advocate, because I knew deep down that something was tied to it, even though everybody wanted to tell me it was not. If there is something that is going on with your medical health that you feel is not right, please do not give up on it. Stand for what you believe in. Seek out other opinions. And by all means, do what you feel is best for you, because people go through medical school for years to gain the knowledge that they do. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of medical providers, but I also know my body better than they do. And I also know when something is not right, I'm going to trust it. And that's what I want you to take away from this episode. If there is something that you feel, regardless of what everybody else is saying, please trust it, and please advocate for yourself and fight for what it is that you believe in, and fight for what you truly feel is best for you. I hope this episode helped. Thank you for supporting, and stay tuned for our next one.